If you like to laugh, and who doesn't, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to My Funny House with the Powell brothers. Frank Powell is a real estate broker who was born and raised in San Diego, along with Frank's brother Mark, a real estate broker who also lives in San Diego. Each week, the Powell brothers bring in a special guest comedian to share hilarious real estate stories so you can learn what can go really right and what can go really wrong with home improvements and home ownership. So now, let's get into it. With My Funny House, here are your hosts, Frank and Mark Powell on The Answer San Diego.
Good morning, San Diego. Happy Saturday. Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Fine. Good morning.
Welcome to My Funny House. Today we are going to be talking about moving. Everybody likes to move. Isn't that true, Frank?
No, I don't like to move.
Nobody really likes to move. You know what? You know who's your best friend when you have to move?
Who?
The guy with the truck.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I never wanted to buy a truck, because I know I'd get phone calls every Saturday.
You know what? I did have a truck, and I did get phone calls.
I called you, remember?
I had that truck donated and get it out of here, and then all my friends disappeared.
That's right. Hey, we also have Maria Herman on the line, our co-host, Maria Herman. Good morning, Maria. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
How are you today, Maria?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely great. Our Comedy Heights show is now on Friday nights again. So last night was another great show, and we're very happy about that, to be back up and running.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we have a special guest comedian. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce our guest comedian.
I'm very excited to have my friend from San Diego joining us this morning. Not only has he appeared on Laughs on Fox many times, but he's been a finalist on San Diego's Funniest Person. Please make him very, very welcome and very funny, Josh Nelson. Yes.
Applause.
Yay.
Thanks, Josh.
We're going to stand up. The standing ovation.
I like, except for you guys didn't stand, I can see you. So that's all right.
That's true. That's the thing with
Okay,
Zoom.
so we're going to go right into it, Mark.
Okay, so whenever somebody purchases a house or sells a house, there's a high probability that they'll be moving. Is that correct, Frank?
100%.
And that involves a lot. It involves packing, which is something that's very challenging to do. It also involves carrying heavy items, objects, so there's a chance for injury.
Well, here's what the problem is. That's typically the paralyzing moment when somebody goes, what am I going to do with all my stuff? My garage is packed, my house is packed, and they get into this almost like psychological paralysis where they don't know where to begin. How do I sort my stuff? I got my garage, I got my house, I got the backyard, I got the storage container. Where do you start, and how, as realtors, do we help that process?
Okay, so here's the first thing that you have to do. You have to determine, do I want to hire a moving company or do I want to do this myself?
A lot of times when you think you're going to save money and you want to get your friends and you want to lift stuff yourself, you will save money, but you'll end up with a back injury that'll put you out for a year.
That's true.
And you'll break your stuff and you'll get frustrated.
Well, let's ask Josh, if I were to be moving this weekend and I called you up and go, hey, Josh, I'm moving. I know you're here in San Diego. Can you help me? What would you say?
I would say that I threw my back out and I cannot help.
That's the standard response. That's exactly
That's a good
right.
one. Yeah, I threw my back out. Yeah, it works.
And the thing is, I actually do have a bad back. And when I use that as an excuse, people think I'm just bluffing them. But, not too many people over 45 have good backs.
No. Or my truck has a flat tire. Either one,
Both work for me. So
let's talk about hiring a moving company.
So we're going to hire a moving company.
Now, how do you determine what is a good moving company? Because there's a lot of things to consider when you're selecting who is going to move you.
Well, it depends. Do you want to move locally or are you moving across the country?
Correct.
Because if you're moving across the country, there's special companies that actually cater to cross-country moving. You can find those people online.
And Maria, you moved across country once. How was that for you?
Well, I'll tell you, the first time that I moved cross country was from back east to move to California. And I packed whatever I could into my 4Runner and I drove. And my son was lucky that he was little enough to actually fit in the vehicle because I was going to leave him behind. And now, doing a move back east, I haven't actually moved all my stuff. It's still sitting in San Diego, but it has been very confusing using different or looking at different companies, because you think you want to pick the company that's going to charge the least amount of money, but when you read the fine print, if your weight ends up being more than they estimated and you agreed to it, then you could get, lobbed with this enormous bill on top of what you've already paid. So sometimes it's better to pay more up front, which is what I told my husband when we got married. Just pay more up front. It'll be worth it in the end.
Well, that's a good example. And I'll give you something that I think, Maria, if you're going to move across country, and let's say you have items like a safe, okay? So you have this
Right.
huge, heavy safe, and they typically charge by the pound, right? So when you're moving. So you got to calculate, is it worth taking the safe? I mean, of course, you take the stuff out of the safe, but now you just got a heavy box. Do you take it with you, or do you buy a new safe when you get to the East Coast or the West Coast?
Sometimes it's better just to leave it. You
Yep.
know, sometimes it's better to leave your television bracket on the wall instead of taking that all off. You're going to move it, you remove that. One thing I want to share with the audience here is that when you're moving, you have options to hire these companies that provide things called pods. There's actually a company called Pods, but they're moving pods. They'll pull them up in front of your house, and they'll give you a certain amount of time to fill up these pods. They take them away. They can store them for you for a fee, and you can move them to wherever you need to move them at your convenience. So if you're in transition, you can just have your stuff stored in a pod.
I like
Yeah,
that.
my son used a pod when he was moving from Texas, but then he lost the cat. He really.
Yeah, don't stick animals in the pods.
Oh, yes.
I think the cat got in there by himself. I think I just outed my son as having a cat. Sorry.
Yes, that's okay. We have cats. Cats are nice. I like cats. You know?
So there's storage unit versus pods is what Mark, I think, brought up. It's better to get the pods, I believe, because they're temporary. They're in your face. They're sitting on your front driveway.
Well, explain what you mean storage units versus pods.
Okay, well, first of all, you have the pod. That's the thing that comes into towards your house, and it sits in your garage or just outside where you park, and you're kind of forced to do something. A storage unit is someplace where you have to go. So you're doing two moves. You're moving stuff from your house into a storage unit, and then you're going to have to go into that storage unit if you ever go back there. A lot of people just leave it there, and then you got to repack it to leave. So that's why pods was created, because it's just a better method if you're going to go short-term storage. If you're going to leave stuff there over a month or 2 months or a year, yeah, you may want to do a storage. But if you're going to move it, I suggest the pods is a much better idea.
I have a storage unit. It's called my parents' house.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh? What's been your experience with moving? Have you moved a lot?
Yes, I moved a lot, and I'm definitely pro-moving company, and that's just because I was kind of burnt in my 30s. I remember one time I wanted to save some money, and I actually got a moving company, and they were called Two Dudes and a Truck. And that's their real name. I'm not making that up. And they ended up, I paid them $150 an hour, and they ended up breaking a $1,000 bed. So I was just like, and they didn't have any rules of like, if we break it, we'll pay for it, or any liability or anything like that. So that's when I learned that I was pro-moving. And in your 40s, you're a lot different, because your 40s, you move. Like, this doesn't really make sense for in your 20s, because in your 20s, you just leave. Like, you leave your furniture in there. You're just like, we're not going to get our deposit back. But now in my 40s, I expect my deposit back. So I do everything by the book. I get a moving company. And so that's kind of my experience now.
Two Dudes Will Move You. If Mark and I, since we're Jewish, we can have a company called Two Jews Will Move You. I don't know if
I am never hiring you guys.
Okay. We'd have to wear our yarmulkes.
Yeah, just have a big yarmulke on the front of the car. But
in fact, I can use one of these right here.
Yeah, just
there you go.
Put your face mask on your head. You got a business. So so the next step is what Josh just covered is really important. It depends what you're moving. There's some of us who are wealthy enough to have expensive art pieces, a vase that you got, from your great grandmother, or something very, very, very fragile. So do you want the same guys that are moving your refrigerator to move an expensive piece of art? The answer is absolutely not. So there are companies that you can get who actually will create will make or create a crate for your items so they will not be damaged. So if you have expensive stuff to move, make sure you take that into consideration.
They'll do that for things as simple as art. If you go to the San Diego Museum of Art, you wonder how they transport those paintings all over. They have special crews. Either they are working at the museum or they hire them out that build these crates for moving. And they're not, believe me, they're not cheap, but they're worth it, because if you have a painting that's worth millions, you want to make sure it doesn't get ripped. Can you imagine ripping?
Absolutely not.
No?
Yes.
You guys own anything that's real expensive?
I was just thinking, if I wanted to, like, if I was going to, go to one place or another, could they build me a little crate and I could just bring my water bottle and get in the crate and go? I mean, this could be a vacation on wheels. I mean,
I've seen on YouTube some people trying to mail themselves. Did you ever see that?
I've seen people
jump in a box and then they end up not so good at the other end.
No,
right?
but Frank, let me ask you something. What if you have a bunch of animals and you have to transport those animals? Like, what's the best way to move an animal?
It's funny. Well, it's not really funny. A lot of times we sell a house and the owners will say, "Hey, there's a cat that keeps coming up to my house." Uh-huh. Obviously, what happens is that cats are not like dogs. Cats stay with the house. Dogs stay with the people. So if you ever leave your house, the dog's always chasing you. I'm going, but the cat will stay back. Sometimes people just leave their cats there, and all of a sudden they think it's a feral cat, but this cat, that's his house. So all of a sudden you just donated a cat.
Well, Josh has a cat.
Josh, do you have a cat?
Is it your cat or is it your house cat?
Whose cat is that?
Oh, I don't have a cat.
Oh. No.
oh, you do now.
No. I'm a dog guy. Make that clear.
So let me I got to make a good point. If there's other real estate agents listening to this show, so people are going to ask you this. Can you suggest a hiring company for me as a broker? They ask us. The most important thing to do when somebody asks you for help is you got to understand, if you suggest a certain person to help them move and something breaks, what's going to happen. Your guys broke my boss.
Right.
And they're going to be held liable. So what you always do,
like dating, like if you set somebody up,
you set me up.
With that guy. He's a psycho, or that
Exactly. So what Mark and I always do is we tell them to go Google it and pick your own.
Right.
Or if we do have suggestions, we always give them 3 and say, we don't know how these guys are. Since we've worked with them, they've been okay. We're not sure, but here's 3 to pick from. You don't just want to give them your friend that move, because if they have a bad experience, that's your reputation and that's your liability, because they will blame you. I don't, they just do. They just go, this is broken. You told me to hire these guys. So you have to be careful as an agent on how you give that information to your clients.
Right. I'm going to want to know if it was the 2 Jews that moved me who broke my cat.
That's right. What a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Catastrophe.
Everyone in our family is going to be attorneys, so we're kidding.
Okay, so here's something else to consider. As you're moving, you start going through your stuff, and you'll find out that you have a lot of things that you may want to get rid of. You can donate them, but there's other options. So now you can take old clothing, things like that. You can sell them on eBay, but there's shops you can take them to donate, or you can actually get money for them now. Were you guys aware of that?
Oh, where do you think I do all my shopping?
Of course. I don't think you do it there, Maria.
Josh, what about you?
Well, I just wanted to go back to the moving thing, and even if you're moving a room, I still think you get movers, because it's you can only offer your brother pizza so many times, and he's going to actually come up and do it. He's like, "Come on, man, you're in your 40s. I'm not going to come move for pizza." And then the other thing I've really noticed is that if you rent movers, you got to add a couple hours, because if you think they're going to do it in 6 hours, they're not.
That's right. Good point.
And you also don't want to end up helping them move like I did one time. I'm helping the movers move to try to cut time, and it's just not worth it.
It's so true.
Add a couple hours in there.
I can ask you guys a question. Why is it pizza always the default food for moving? It's never like, hey, you want to come over? I've got some termites that I just fried up here. They taste like peanuts,
Everybody loves pizza. I offer people beer to do things for me, and nobody will come because they know it's still going to take a long time. It's never enough
American
beer.
trademark, beer and pizza.
I invited people to move once, and I offered them beer, and by noon everyone was drunk and nothing got done.
Another thing we consider when Mark and I are dealing with moving, which is every house we sell, is the age of the people that you're involved with. A lot of times seniors and people have been in their house for over 40 years. If you take a picture off their wall, you've just insulted their whole their whole family. So you got to be very careful on what you say. Hey, you can get rid of stuff. You could throw things away. You don't ever want to use that terminology. You want to give them words like you can donate that. You can store this. You can package this. You can give it to relatives. And then let them come up with a verbiage like, well, what if I want to sell something? And then you provide that. So it's very psychological when you're moving from a house that you've been growing up in for 40, 50 years and relocating the people, and it may be the last time they move. So we have to be very
traumatic
careful.
for some people. It's traumatic for some people who've spent, generations in a house and now they have to move. So what we recommend them to do is pack a box. You don't have to make any decisions on whether or not you want to get rid of anything. Just get it packed. And then that's when you go to the storage. That's when you use storage, I think. That's
well, you give them options. What we do is I actually go to Home Depot. I get a whole bunch of boxes, maybe 30 of them, and I make rows in the garage. And then you got the donate, you got the keep, you got the possibly keep, you got the giveaway, you got give this to the church, and you give them options. And then you just leave them alone and let them pack slowly. And then they can switch around the boxes. And then eventually that at least starts them the process, because the hardest part about the psychological paralysis is starting the process of moving, which is putting things in boxes.
It's the biggest thing.
I mean, I get it, because if somebody told me to take down my Jordan posters, I'd be pissed.
There
So
you go.
I get it.
You never want to take those down.
No.
I think lately it's been a lot easier to get rid of things because that whole Marie Kondo movement has, changed things as far as, if it brings you joy, that's good, you can keep it. My son says if whatever he's looking at doesn't make him angry, then he keeps it. So that's his way of looking at things. It helps. Just
don't do it with family members. If it brings you joy, keep it. If it doesn't, get rid of it. You go.
I know.
We do.
So also when we deal with people that are either buying or selling and they have to move, we determine what is the reason for moving. So some people now, especially baby boomers, which Frank and I are in that age group of baby boomers, a lot of their reasons for moving is going from a 2-story house to a single-story house. And that typically involves something called downsizing. So for downsizing, that's when you're going to have a lot of items that are going to need to be either stored or given away, donated. So also to determine what a person's motivation is for moving. That's going to have a lot to do with how you direct them on what to do and what to do with the moving and storage.
I think it's helpful if before you move you have like one of those Greek or Italian weddings or whatever they are, and then everybody breaks the plates. just break everything before you go. Yeah. Then there's a whole lot less to move. It's just makes it easy.
Then you go from hiring movers to hiring cleaners.
Well, Maria, you brought up a good point. So when the movers are moving your items and they break something, should you get insurance? Like moving insurance. Frank has a story about. Well, Maria, what do you think? Did you get insurance?
Well, listen, I think insurance is probably safer than what I would do, which would be hit the movers. What are you doing? Breaking my stuff. Right. Because then you have a chance of getting recouping some money back, right? But like if you're moving cross country, they only have it only goes up to a certain limit, and then you have to buy more insurance if you think your stuff is worth more. So I mean,
you want to make.
I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it's worth it.
You want to make sure that the people that you hire, if you're having a professional mover, has liability insurance, because you don't want somebody to get injured in your house. You want to make sure how many claims they've ever had against them to make sure they have a good history, how long they've been in business, and you want to get 3 resources on people they move. These are the
references.
The references. These are the due diligence that you have to have if you don't want things to go wrong. Because I guarantee, and if you have a 2-story house, Mark, and you're going up and down stairs, The wall's going to get scratched or something's going to get broken.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to ask them, what happens if you break something of mine?
Maria beats him up. We already know.
Yeah.
Call Maria.
This is the way I handle everything, actually. It's just, if it goes wrong, someone's getting hit.
Actually, we did have a situation like that where something was broken. Remember that?
That was horrible. So the mover was in there, who I recommended. That's why I learned from my mistakes. And we're talking about moving this lamp. It was a Tiffany lamp, but it was old. It was from Italy. So the guy goes, just make sure you don't break that lamp. The guy was holding it. He goes, no, I'm fine. I'm gonna handle it perfectly. And he didn't know that the top of the lamp was not attached to the bottom of the lamp. And he went to hand it right in front of us, and the top fell and exploded. This crystal exploded on the floor. And then you hear the whole family go, what was that sound? And we're just all going like,
Well,
oh
they
my
said
God.
something in Italian. I don't.
Yeah,
wanna
we don't
say
even
it,
know what
but
it
I know
was.
exactly what it
Yeah,
was. It was.
Yeah, we know what they said in Italian, but we can't repeat that. There's a lot of words.
They
in
said that's the
Italian.
last time those two Jews move us.
Yeah.
That's what they said in
And
Italian.
we have to go to two Italians because we're half
yeah.
Italian too.
Vaffanculo Tula.
So, yeah, something like
I don't
that.
know Italian.
Yeah, but that was too close.
Spaghetti with banana.
So the problem was that the insurance company that they had insurance couldn't figure out what to price this thing for because it was like one of a kind. So that's when I was really, really careful on being there or not. I don't want to be involved with the movers.
Right.
I don't even go. I just go. You hire.
Learn
the
from
movers.
experience.
Learn from experience. These are things that can go really wrong. And the way that lady, she came out, the grandma, the nonna came out to look at us and saw that her Tiffany lamp was
You know what she
destroyed.
said in Italian?
What?
She said, I'm going to hire Maria.
I need to call her Maria.
Maria!
She's a nonna. She's the one who taught me how to hit.
Yes.
Hey, we're coming close to the end of our show, so we want to ask some questions about Josh. Maria, can you help us get in touch with Josh?
I think Josh,
Josh, how do we get in
You on
touch with your
YouTube?
social media?
you have your new show up.
Jay Nelson Comedy on Instagram and Twitter on all that stuff. And then I also started a company called PB Backyard Comedy where we're doing outdoor shows in parks with a couple other guys. So that's really the way to find me.
So can you repeat that email again?
Yeah, J is in the
Or the
letter
website?
J, not J-Y.
The letter J and then Nelson, Nelson Comedy at
Okay.
Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, and then PB Backyard Comedy is a company that we started for outdoor shows, and, that's kind of it. I also, just real quick, do I have a second to tell one quick moving story?
Absolutely.
Well, we have, yeah, go ahead. We'll try and jam it in there.
This is another reason to get movers. When we were in our 20s, our buddy had a water bed, and we helped him move it. And we ended up dropping one of the pieces into the water bed. The water bed exploded, went all over the house. And that was just, we're like, all right.
Hey, we would like to thank everyone for tuning in. Maria, can you just quickly, let's bring it to a close here. How do we get a hold of you?
I'll be under the waterbed getting dry. ComedyHeights.com.
Okay, and for all your real estate needs, be sure to contact the Powell brothers either by phone 858-922-7725 or powellbrothersrealty.com. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Be careful when you
Thanks so
move.
much for joining us today for My Funny House with the Powell Brothers, right here on The Answer San Diego. Join us next week as the Powell Brothers bring you more funny stories of what can go really right and what can go really wrong with home improvements and home ownership, and bring the laughs to you with yet another hilarious guest comedian. To find out more about the Powell Brothers, be sure to check out their website at powellbrothersrealty.com, or you can visit myfunnyhouse.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week for My Funny House on The Answer San Diego.